plan a church quarter for your youth group. So today you have myself and Mr. Brian Lashley. We will be sharing with you on how to plan a church quarter for your youth group. I will turn you over to Mr. Lashley and he will begin the presentation.
Pleasant good evening to everyone. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Thanks. Sorry for being so late. I know old fella having some technical challenges. But I'm hoping that everyone is okay and that everyone is doing well. So this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about how to plan a church quarter. And God forgive me, I'm an old guy, not 100% familiar with the app. So what I want to do is I can share my screen with this, right? Okay. All right, can do a good presentation. So what I want to run through is some basic things that we can start doing first in order to, I'm so sorry, in order to plan a church quarter. All right. And initially what I had done was something called the 5 P's. Okay. And that's the five P's. And one of those P's, really and truly, the main P that we want to start with, ladies and gentlemen, revolves really and truly around the point of prayer. Okay. And I say prayer because as young people, all of us, one of the key things that we really have to start with is prayer. And the whole idea and the focus here is, what's God saying to us? What does God want us to do? Where does he want us to go? So there are 5 P's. I have five P's I have envisioned here for us. First P, of course, is going to be prayer. Second P is going to be purpose. Third P is going to be about planning. Fourth P is going to be performance, or executing the plan. And then the 5th P is going to be about the postmortem. But at that point, I'm going to turn over to Andalia, and she's definitely going to take it over from there and do a phenomenal job. Praise the Lord. So the first P I want to discuss with you guys about is, of course, that of the prayer plan. Okay, the prayer plan. And when it comes to prayer, there's a Bible verse I wanna inject here, and it's according to Proverbs 16 verse 3. Proverbs 16 verse 3, and it says, "Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established." I'm going to say that again. Proverbs 16:3. Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. Now, the first aspect that we say is prayer, is that as a team, as the exec of your youth group, or as a youth group and youth council, get into prayer. First thing and foremost, find out where God wants you to go. Don't get me wrong, I know you guys have some phenomenal ideas, a lot of stuff maybe floating. Where can I go? I want to do this, I want to do that. That's fantastic. But the first thing you have got to do is to see where God is leading you in your planning. Step number 1. Second thing is, ask God for unity in your planning. Unity in your planning. And this is why prayer is important and why everyone must be in one accord when you're going through this aspect. Because the wonderful thing is, even though you have so many fantastic ideas, there may be different ideas. And ideas that don't necessarily coincide or necessarily mesh or gel. Like one body could have, well, let's do a thing on peace, and somebody can say, let's do a piece on war. As you see, they don't go together well. And so the first aspect that I really encourage you to get into when we look at this entire thing of planning, start with prayer. First, foremost, start with prayer. Okay. The second aspect of planning your youth group, and I sort of kind of mentioned it in a way, is to get into purpose. All right. What's the purpose of your quarter? You're telling us a purpose. What's that important for? Okay. In thinking or in coming up with this thing, and sure, and Dali and myself, we both could agree on this, is that no organization good of worth, no organization that's seeking to push forward or push the envelope or to be successful and sustainable does not have a strategy or a purpose to what they're going to do. So you prayed, and God has given you the direction, and He's brought you together and united for a particular purpose. So, for example, in Proverbs 20, verse 5, it says, the purposes in the human mind are like deep water, but the intelligent will draw them out. All right, I'll say that again. Proverbs 20, verse 5. The purposes in the human mind are like deep water, but the intelligent will draw them out. And we know we're all amazingly intelligent people here. Maybe not me, but I'm sure you guys are. Right? And the whole idea is, what's the purpose? What's the theme? What's the emphasis for the quarter? All right. And I don't want to jump in and give you an emphasis, but what would you as a youth group, have you seen a need or something that you think as a team you can focus on for that quarter? If you want to focus on being charitable, you could have a whole set of activities, be it fun activities, Bible study activities, or just internal activities in the team or the group that deal with being charitable or being generous. So, for example, one study, for example, so if you want to plan an activities, 3 activities could be learning how we can be generous in our homes, being more sharing and more kind to each other. Another activity could be going out there and having a feeding program, or liaising with another aspect of your church or church community who does outreach and feedings. And then another activity, hey, let's go to the beach, do a Bible study, and at the end of the day, let's invite someone from our community who we know may be not going through the best and who needs some help, and invite them up, let them have fun for nothing, for free. But in all these things, we must ensure that we must allow God to be in it, right? But of course, it's all in line with what our purpose is about being generous or showing charity. So it's very important. And myself coming through a lot of youth work, a lot of youth groups over the years, I can tell you, it looks very good. It shows a great deal about yourself, especially while you're here at DYLTS, that you have a strategy to what you're doing, right? And next thing, of course, know who you're talking to. I may take some licks for this, but hey, you as young persons, for example, you may not be in if you want to have a fun activity, I don't think you'll have a tea party, right? But a tea party may cater to another demographic. So in planning what you want to do, who is my audience? Who am I catering to? Who do I want to reach, so that I can pinpoint the particular things that work best, so that I hit the mark and I target the right people. And next thing, of course, select engaging activities. Being realistic, you won't get everyone, but you'll get most people. And the important thing is to try to be as engaging as possible. And so, of course, making it as memorable as possible. So we're praying, we're seeking purpose, and then on to the next one, which is the whole thing of planning. Now, planning is so important. And there's some stuff I wish I knew when I was doing my youth groups back in the day. Something called smart planning. We get into smart, right? SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I'll say that again. SMART. So we're going to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Now, according to Luke 14, verse 28, it says, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and establish the cost, and rather estimate the cost, to see whether he has enough to complete it?" And that's Luke 14:28. So we want to be smart. So let's start with S. What does the S stand for? The S is about being specific. So in order for a goal to be effective, we need to be specific, correct? A goal or a specific goal answers questions like, for example, what needs to be accomplished? Who's responsible for it? What steps need to be taken to achieve it? So in being specific, we're trying to narrow down what is needed to get this thing done. Now, and I always need to say as well at this point, in all your activities, they may not be smart. That's a weird thing to say. But what we want to ensure is that they are going to be effective. So smart planning really helps us to ensure that we stay on track and that we are always pointing in the same and the correct direction. So once again, what is smart? A specific start with in our smart planning, what needs to be accomplished, who's responsible for it, what steps need to be taken to achieve it. So for an example, I'm going to use this statement through smart planning. So for example, you want to improve the group's knowledge of kitchen gardening and the benefits of growing your own food. And in today's, global economic thing, blah, 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 we know that having a little knowledge of having a little green thumb could help, right? So we're starting with improving the group's knowledge of kitchen gardens and the benefits of growing their own food. So that could be a specific target that we're looking for in our smart planning. Second thing is M, measurable. So now we're getting into measurable. And for measurable, what we're trying to do is quantify our goals or making sure that they're measurable, it makes it easier to track our progress and to know when we've reached the finish line. One of the interesting things I have to add in here is that so many times is we just plan events for planning events. We just do things. Oh, let's do this. Let's do that. As you get older and first in church life and other stuff, you know that you need to know, why are you doing this and have we hit our targets? Even as a youth group, what's your target? And if I know what's your target, like, have we reached our target? So making it measurable helps. So to make a smart objective more impactful, we need to put in things like what we call benchmarks or targets or guides or points along the trail so that we know we are where we are. For example, hikers, people who hike or people who do stuff on maps and orienteering and that kind of stuff, there are waypoints on your maps, like Google Maps and stuff will give you like these points to follow. And so where you are at a specific point in time because you will actually have these measured points on that right track. Okay. So back to our original example. So now we're improving the group's knowledge of kitchen gardens and the benefits of growing their own food. And here's a bit of measurability being injected. Reaping produce from 3 crops. Okay. So we've taken our first thing by we're doing this kitchen garden thing, but now we're making it measurable because we want to reap produce from a specific number of crops. As I said, this could be fitted to almost any example you're going to use. So once if you're looking at being generous or looking at being charitable, you want to be able at the end of the day to donate to two charities, right? Something like that. But make it measurable so you know where you're going and what your endpoint should be. And the reason why it should be is because the next thing is attainable. So S, M, and now we're on to attainable, right? And this is the point in the process where, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to be real with yourself. Okay, you got to be real with yourselves. Because goals should be realistic. Not just sound lofty and good because hey, everyone else is doing this, so I should do this too. You've got to be realistic about your goals. So this is an easy one. So you need to ask yourself, is your objective something your team can reasonably accomplish? Right? So for example, you say, I want my team to learn carpentry. You know, at the end of the carpentry course, you want to build a house. Then you realize, maybe we should just stick with building a chair. Right? Manage your expectations, but make sure that whatever it is you're looking to do is achievable. So looking back at, we're going to improve the group's knowledge of kitchen gardens and the benefits of growing their own food by reaping produce from, the previous statement said 3 crops. But in the process of your going through, you start to realize, can't get the seeds for this, can't get the seeds for that, and da. And maybe we don't have facilities. Let's cut it down to 2. All right. We still have a smart plan. We're specific. We still have something measurable. But now we realize we have something that's far more achievable. So that's S, M, A. Let's move on to R. R is relevant. R is relevant. And I guess everyone here can agree relevance is super important. I say relevance is super important because we know, as I've come to understand, we need to be relevant. As young followers of Christ, we need to be impactful. And one of the most impactful things is to be relevant to what? To our source, relevant to who we're trying to reach. And so here's where you need to think about the big picture. Why are you setting the goal you're setting? Okay. So for example, and we're going back to our first thing. We're going to improve the group's knowledge of kitchen gardens and the benefits of growing their own food by reaping produce from 2 crops. And here's the relevance part. You add in a why. Because as food prices increase, members should be equipped with tools to cope with this. And so if your thing is charity, so all the events why? Because you're trying to, what is your purpose on charity? Are you trying to increase the group's awareness of the needs of the underserved and underprivileged in your community? Are you trying to build up the group's knowledge of Christ and how Christ was charitable himself? What is it relevant? Why is it important to know this? Why is it important to know this? Last but by no means least of our planning and our smart planning is that of T, which is time bound. So we've had specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and now time bound. Time bound is super important. For any of you that have done any kind of management or trying to do any kind of management and project management and that kind of stuff, time bound is important. Some people joke and say time is equal to money. Time is money. But here we don't do that. But why time is important? Because we want to achieve this thing. We want to make sure by time, let's say this is our quarter, that by the end of the quarter, you can look back and say, we've done it. So the quarter in this case, or the time period you set for planning an event, at the end of the period, at the end of the time frame. So if you want to do for the church year, church quarter, first 2 months, whatever, at the end of that time, that you have achieved what your goal is. right? And so one of the hallmarks of proper smart planning is to ensure you have a time frame. Don't just leave it open ended. Oh, it happens when it happens. No, we're leveling up. We're being strategic. We're being specific. We're being smart because we know that no, hey, let's have a time frame. And even that starts to trickle down into your own life when you start to realize that things don't just happen when it happen, or it's done when they're done, or finish when they finish. We put time restraints on things so that we know that in X, Y, Z time, things are happening. So back to our original statement, how does it round off now with time? So here we go. So we're looking to improve the group's knowledge of kitchen gardens and the benefits of growing their own food. So that's the smart. We're looking at by reaping produce from two crops. That's the measurable, and of course, measurable and achievable. Within, here's the time part now, the second quarter of 2023. And then we still add back in our relevant part. As food prices increase, members should be equipped with tools to cope with this. So this is an example, but it doesn't stick there. It's not the only way. So at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that when we plan stuff, fun stuff, study stuff, outreach stuff, at the end of the day, all these activities gel together in some way or some form to meet the goal of that period that you're going through. Okay. And then next P, so we've gone through prayer, we've gone through purpose, we've gone through planning. Now we're on to my final P, which is performance. All right. 2 Corinthians 8:11 says, 2 Corinthians 8:11. Now finish doing it so that your eagerness may be matched by completing it according to your means. Now finish doing it so that your eagerness may be matched by your completing it according to your means. 2 Corinthians 8:11. Performance really and truly is putting everything into practice. So we've had ensuring everything is in place beforehand, and then monitoring the activity as it's going through. Don't just go in there, let things start, and you just lose track of what is going on. You can't, guys can't do that. Can't do it. And especially if you're part of the team that put it together, that particular activity. And yes, you can have different teams responsible for different activities. If I come to you and I ask, hey, what's supposed to be happening here? You're like, you've dropped the ball there, guys. That shouldn't be happening. Because remember, back when we were talking about specific stuff, it was who's responsible for what. And you must be very sure to take responsibility for what you are doing. Taking responsibility is very, very important. All right. And of course, as I always like to say, get rid of the micromanagement stuff. Okay. If someone is responsible for something, let them be responsible for it. You come together, you discuss, so we're all on the same page, but let persons manage what they are responsible for. Make necessary adjustments during the activity. Sometimes you have to move on the fly. Sometimes you have to make adjustments, pivot in order to ensure that things continue moving on the right track. Fine, do that, but always stay focused on what the end game is. I said this already, act responsibly at all times. Like, own it. Own it. Something didn't go well, own it. Own it, learn from it, fix it. And P for me, and let's add the same for jokes. Clean up after. Clean up after. Sometimes people do activities and then they just disappear, leaving a specific group of people to always be there to clean up. And if you're there for the fun, be there for the cleaning up. Have fun cleaning up as well. That's just my pet peeve at the end. I just want to add that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us through 4 P's thus far. So that has been the whole aspect of prayer, purpose, plan, perform. And now I turn over to Andalia, and she's going to take us through postmortem.
Thank you very much, Brian. We're on our final P, which is post-mortem. And the scripture that we will use with this P comes from Lamentations chapter 3, verses 40. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. So what are we going to do when we get to the stage of the final, which is post-mortem? During this stage, discuss and assess the event. After we have gone through the first 4 Ps, we need to assess how everything went in the quarter. In order for us to successfully do this, we'll employ a method known as the analysis. Under this, we have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and at the bottom of this, although it's not included, we have the resolutions. Let's take a look at the strengths. Under the strengths, we'll take a look at what did our group accomplish very well during this quarter. So we should outline the aspects of the quarter that made it successful. These can then be implemented and also enhanced for our upcoming quarter to ensure we have continued success or even greater success for that matter. So we can take things such as time management skills into consideration. There may be persons within the group who had extremely splendid time management skills. They ensured that everything was in place and on time. They made sure there were no persons falling, but they had specific tasks to complete. That's an aspect that you need to keep within the group. So that would be one of your strengths. To tie in with this, you have proper planning and management skills. That's what we needed to ensure your quarter is successful. If we do not plan properly, we will simply make a mess of everything we do. We have to outline steps, how we intend to approach things, how we intend to work through any difficulties we may encounter, and then we shall be able to successfully complete our quarter. After our strengths, we examine our weaknesses. What could we have done differently through this quarter? So, when we identify our weaknesses, we will be tasked with discussing the ways in which we may have fallen short in terms of planning or executing whatever it is our goal have been when we began the quarter. And we also have to ensure that we work together and formulate ideas surrounding how necessary improvements will be made so that we'll ensure we have a repeat of those same weaknesses when we return to examine second quarter. So some weaknesses that we may encounter: procrastination. We all have our specific schedules. Maybe busy for some, not so busy for others. Busy persons may think we can leave off some activities for a day before it may not be that difficult. And when it's time to actually put things together, it's a problem because we do not have as much time as we thought we would have, and the activity out may be very mediocre. Another issue that turns apart in groups, co-meeting attendance, that may be one of the weaknesses of the group. So we have to ensure that we encourage each other to attend meetings, put your weight, play a role, do your part, so that everything will be on track. So we've looked at our strengths, identified our weaknesses. Now we need to look at our opportunities. What did we encounter in this quarter that we can use at our advantage, both in the present time and in the future? So we have identified things that we can maximize the use of, which will be in terms of resources, how possible they are. Those who are offered to the group during the quarter, how can they be used strategically to gain the entirety of their benefits? So for example, you may receive funding from a particular group. Your group may need t-shirts, you may need sweaters, you may need sponsorship for someone to travel. How will I reach out to this sponsor? How will I use them to their maximum? You can then say, okay, by branding myself with your t-shirts or so, although it's our logo on it, we will remember to incorporate that. For example, in there you can say I was sponsored by Brian and Miners, and persons will become interested in, supporting your sponsor, which in turn will help you in the future because they will realize that yes, we help this group, they are willing to work with us, they are promoting us, and everyone benefits. Okay, so you can focus on your sponsorships and your partners, use them for advantage, but make sure you do not exploit them. Finally, we look at our threats. What difficulties were faced by the group during this quarter? So here we will outline any obstacles we would have faced, ensure that the ways we identify to resolve them are very practical, and everyone understands how we will go about addressing these threats will be any negative situations that would have impacted the group in any way. Anything you can think of, you should address it to avoid having a reoccurrence in the next quarter. For example, some persons may have shown lack of interest or initiative. That's not something we would like to repeat. In order for our activities to be successful, we need all hands on deck. Everyone needs to show it. If I am not interested, I will definitely be laid back. I will not attend meetings. I will submit my tasks late. Sometimes I may even forget I have certain tasks to submit. So we need to ensure that we're on top of our game in terms of time management. Another threat we can look at is the absence of ideas for activities. So we're trying to figure out what fundraising activity can we look at for this quarter. How can we reach out to probably members of the congregation to assist us with events for this quarter? And one set of persons provides ideas. At times they will stop, giving other persons a chance, and nothing comes up. So for this quarter, there's nothing. And that's a problem we really cannot have. We're a community, it's a church. Work together, get things done. Everyone needs to cooperate. It's called a team. Team work makes the dream work. So we need to be willing to work together, sort out our issues within the group, SWOT analysis, identify your strengths, identify your weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And then you'll be well on your way to having a successful next quarter. Then we turn to our resolutions. In our resolutions, we'll basically go through our SWOT analysis, and this is where we'll dive a bit deeper into exactly how we will go about addressing all of the things we would have outlined. For example, lack of initiative. Persons who are willing to join the group, you may want to ensure that they are joining the group for all of the right reasons and not just because of affiliations or to say, oh yeah, I'm in this group, I have friends, they told me to join, so I just joined. That's for the wrong reasons. If it's a community group where we do volunteer work, we need persons who love volunteering, persons who care about persons within their community, persons who are willing from their hearts to participate in the various activities. So at this time, I will invite you, all you, to feel free to type it in the chat. That'll be the 5 P's we will incorporate when we are trying to decide how to plan a church quarter for our youth group. Does anyone remember?
I don't know. Seems we've made a really good presentation there, and Dahlia, you just gotta say you're phenomenal. Thanks so much. That was so great.
It was great working with you. Thank you.
Just want to say, guys, one of the key reasons why we're doing this is that we really need to take us from, yes, it's all well and good to have these nice, cool, oh, I like to do this and like to do that kind of activity. But this also prepares us for so much more in that when we have our planning tight, when we are able to plan and elevate the level of our planning, we start to see changes in the outcomes of our activities. We start to see growth. We start to see development. We start to see expansion. Um, when we take a little more time, and be a lot more deliberate. I'm very thankful, especially for what Andalia has said about the postmortem, because me personally, I've been in too many church meetings when it comes to planning stuff. And then I've also been in too many church meetings where people don't turn up to talk about what didn't go well. All right. And we need to. So even as us, as leaders, one of the key things is being a lot more deliberate and being a lot more strategic and being a lot more purposeful for the kingdom in what we do, but then being also very realistic and saying, hey, we dropped the ball here. How can we fix this? I think that's so important. So that's why I think this is super important. Super, super important. Um, any questions, comments, queries, or concerns? Anybody else? Anybody?
In the chat, I see Ronnie said prayer. Thank you, Ronnie. We also have Cherise, who identified all of our performance and postmortem. So we thank you for engaging with us and for taking the time to share with us in our presentation. And we hope you do enjoy the rest of DYLTS and that you learn a lot that you can take with you even after DYLTS has been completed.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one.